Well, friends, it was Sanjeev Sanyal, a youth icon of the country. May I request now Ekta Soda, a Vice President, National Independent School, and may I request AB to be on, please.
Ekta Sodha. Ekta Sodha has been associated with the field of low-cost private schools for many years. She is CEO of Cadmus Education and Sodha Schools. They are ranked 5th in Gujarat for providing quality education at low cost by one of Asia's leading education magazines, Digital Learning. Ekta completed her Master of Education in International Leadership and Management from England. In 2012, Ekta was elected Vice President of the National Independent Schools Alliance, NISA or NISA, India, and re-elected again in 2015. NISA has more than 55,400 low-cost private schools. We extend a warm welcome to her and are glad to present her with Equality Educator Award at the Miracle Discon of Rotary District 3141.
Well, let me invite Sonam and RIPR. Kamal ji, आपका बैठना. Hi. Okay. Okay, I think she wants to have a little later after speaking. Okay, go ahead.
I think I'd rather like to earn it first and see if I'm deserving enough at the end of the lecture.
Go ahead. Good. Great.
Is it possible to have perhaps a little mic in hand? Yeah? And this one works? Just this? It works, no? It works? No, I know how it works, but it works, right? It works, no? Okay. Well, it's truly commendable that an audience like yours, so clever, so bright, can sit all day long without twitching, nudging, feeling uncomfortable, and being very accommodating to speakers like us. But before we proceed any further, I would like to just do a little test we do in the classroom. Are you with me? Are you with me? Okay, so the test goes, it's very silly. You might not forgive me after we have done this, but I still need to check. What I would like you to do is, every time I take a name of a bird, you get up and you tell me it flies. Okay? What are we supposed to do? You get up from your seat. So can we do a little mock? You get up and you say it flies. 1, 2, 3, go. Get up. Everybody. Everybody. I'm not going to forgive. I'm a proper teacher. So everybody has to get up. Flies, right? Okay. Take a seat. Take a seat. All right. So here is the test. 1, 2, 3. Sparrow. Get up, please. Get up. A crow. An eagle. A pigeon. Sit down. You have to sit down by the end of everything. Cheating. Already cheating. You took the other lecture very seriously about cheating after Malia. Cuckoo. A sparrow, a buffalo. Thank God for that, you are awake. It is widely believed that parents from socio-economically challenging backgrounds are not quality conscious and have very low expectations. Well, certainly, there are no low expectations when it comes to their children's education. Let me take you to the ground where I come from, Jamnagar district from Gujarat state. Here is an audiovisual of parents from my old town. This is the typical scene of a vegetable market, old city Jamnagar. Here are 3 parents from my schools. Between the 3 of them, I have about 17 children coming to my school. Another visual. Can you see the gentleman standing on the right and the gentleman sitting on the floor selling knickknacks? Both of them send their children to my schools. Here is another example. The boy standing in his house is a village called Chela, roughly about 17 to 20 kilometers away from Jamnagar. He gets up at 5 in the morning in order to make it to the school at about 7:15, and sometimes even earlier should there be fog or it should be a cold winter morning. This is his surrounding. Here's another boy who accompanies him from the same village. It's not as if there are no good schools around. You must have heard of the initiative, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Sau Bhane, Sau Agad Vadhe. This is the Chela Girls' School, and this is the Chela Boys' School. But not having decent transport links from the village to the school, the parents got together, chipped in a little bit of money, and one parent assumed the role of a rickshaw driver. Between them all, they now own an auto diesel rickshaw to ferry these children first thing in the morning to school to be there for 7:15. Similar story from another village called Changa, about 20 kilometers away. Again, lots of girls wanting to go to a good school, but the village doesn't have any good options, so they ferry their children across. You can see they're all crammed in there, but no one looks sad or depressed. They're all happy. They're going to school. If you were to read Professor Tooley's famous book, The Beautiful Tree, 2009, he's constantly emphasizing that parents in developing and emerging economies are using low-cost private schools in increasing numbers. If I were just to make a little comparison, because I've just lectured in Germany for my TEDx, the population of school-going children alone in India is 3 times the population of entire Germany. Let's look at some figures, then I will go to the more interesting part. The percentage of 6 to 14-year-olds enrolled in schools has risen from almost 19% to 33% from 2006 to 2016, almost in 10 years, such a big rise. Proportion of government schools with 50 students or less is growing, rapidly growing, and it's at the present 4,18,825 government schools have less than 50 or smaller number of pupils. If you were to consider value for money in these low-cost private schools, is 5.3 times higher than government schools. Although standards in private schools are higher than government schools, but still they're not high enough. So what can be done? Here is the past of soda schools, which is something that my father started in the late 80s, and which is something that I inherited by chance. I never planned it, but it just happened to me. If you look at the scenario, I will do the comparison when I finish the lecture. One morning, I was at Newcastle University in 2005. I told my father that I wanted to study fashion and wanted to go to London School of Fashion. And he said that if you want to go overseas to study, I'll definitely fund you, but only at one condition. That is, if you study education and not fashion. Heartbroken that I was, I thought, how difficult can it be? Once I get to London, I'll do what the hell I want to do, and I'll tell father later on that I have now switched universities, I've switched my course, and I'm studying fashion and not education. Little did I know that it never happened, and I got so interested in education that I carried on to do not one degree, but another degree followed by a PhD. I was in the last year of my PhD, and I got a call from my mother one morning saying that, I'm very sorry to report to you that the dream of your father that we saw in the late 80s as these schools is not doing very well. If you were not to come back and rescue them, I'm afraid in another year or so, there will be no school. I realized the severity of the matter, and I rushed back. It was almost approaching for Christmas vacation, and I said, I'm coming home for a month, and let's see what can be done. I went there, and this is what I saw. Teachers were leaving us. Parents were highly dissatisfied with the kind of education we were providing. There were lots of other competitor schools who were providing much better quality of education compared to us. There was no innovation. The schools had been going for such a long time without any updation, any gradual innovation, nothing at all. It was just a chalk and talk school. And we were not geared towards embracing the changing perspectives of the market. The schools had almost become dysfunctional. So I did what any good leader would do. I hired a nice room like this one in the local hotel in Jamnagar. And I told our team that, guys, if we were to survive, we need to change. And I gave a really long feel-good lecture. And I said, let's get up. How many of you are with me? Do you know what happened? No one raised their hand. Neither did anyone get up. So there was no support. I said, never mind. Bash on regardless, as the Indian Army says. I put the first hoarding out in Jamnagar saying, Soda schools, we're changing. And I started with teacher training. First things first, very simple things I got started with. That there are places on earth where good teachers do not want to go. If I were you tomorrow in this room and I told you that I've got a job just for you in Jamnagar, very lucrative, very promising, would you leave Bombay and come to Jamnagar for me to teach a class? You probably wouldn't, right? You would struggle because you have your family. You want to think about your children. You think about good healthcare. You think about education. You think about opportunities, jobs. So it would be very difficult for you to consider moving to Jamnagar into a rural area. So we started with teacher training, how to create good lesson plans, how to teach by example, how to teach by demonstration, how to use technology, and so on and so forth. And so many things we taught them during this teacher training program. And then we came to the TED experiment. This is the kind of pedagogy that we have designed. I remember after finishing my master's in education at Newcastle University in England in 2006, I was wondering what next should I be doing because I got so interested in education by the end of my course. So there was this professor from Kolkata who had just been recruited as a professor at Newcastle University in the School of Education. And I thought that maybe, we might have good synergy being two Indians. Let's just explore if we can work together. So he said that, okay, next week in the evening around 6:30 or 7, come and see in my office. And I said, that's an odd timing to see a professor in the evening. He said, no, I usually start late and I finish late, so come around 6:37. And it was a winter evening. So that was the time in Newcastle and in the northeast of England when knife crime was at its highest. And I left home around 6:15 or so, completely pitch dark, very foggy, and the metro station was roughly about 7 minutes away, walking distance from my house. I started walking. It was dark, but it was fairly pleasant, so I was just enjoying my walk on my way to metro, and I saw a bunch of children approaching me, and it did not look good. They were very rough, they were very ready, and it did not send a good vibe. But at that point, you being alone, the only option I had was to carry on walking and see what, unraveled from there. Children approached nearer and nearer, and my heartbeats were just sort of, going through the roof. All of a sudden, one little kid came forward and brought a knife and stabbed me. I completely fainted for a few seconds at the horror of being stabbed. Just as I regained consciousness, I realized that it was a plastic knife with a little spring attached to it, and they were playing a prank on me. I ran to Sugata's office and I told him, look, this is what has happened. There were rough kids and they tried to stab me, and it turned out it was a prank, but it could have happened for real. And he said, there you go. We found you a PhD, and this is what we are going to research. So what we did was, is it possible to measure aspiration, that what do you want to be in future, if there are good role models or not? As part of that, what we did was, everyone must have heard about TED Talks. Have you? We selected a number of most trending TED Talks, the one that have been watched the most by audiences like ours, and we made a little selection. Over 3 months, every once a week, we would go into the Long Benton Community Center where there would be 300 kids We would take turns of, smaller number of groups. We would show them one TED Talk each every week. Following that, we would say that, let's say the NASA planetary scientist spoke, or Susan Savage Ramberg spoke about bonobos in the Congo. You probably didn't understand, being 8-year-old, being 9-year-old, neither did I understand. So what shall we do? So we gave them couple of keywords, and this couple of keywords, they need to take it to a workstation on a computer. They can cheat, they're allowed to cheat, they can go and see what other people are doing, they can take printouts, they can do whatever they like. But at the end of 1 hour, having surfed on Google, they had to come and produce a presentation, an oral one, nothing special like this one. They just had to come and produce what they learned in this 1 hour. And we call that the TED experiment. Now I say a granny approach. Why do I call it a granny approach? Because all of you must have experienced it for yourself, or may have noticed it, that when children are in the company of their grandparents, they're mostly happy because the grandparents don't demand anything. They only encourage and they only shower love. And if they ask something from the grandparents, am I doing it right? They'll always say, oh yes, well done. It's brilliant. What you're doing is just perfect. This is how I would do it. So we call it the granny approach, that children can self-organize and learn from themselves. Here is a picture of the experiment from the northeast of England, Longman Community Center. And this is a same study that took place in the slums of Hyderabad, in the schools of Charminar, Mehboob Nagar, Kishan Bagh. We replicated the same study. I remember one incident very vividly when we were doing this experiment called, this video called The Moon of Saturn. There was a planetary scientist from NASA called Caroline Porco. And Caroline Porco had led a mission Cassini, which went to the moon of Saturn. So we did this in England, and I remember this little girl was so taken aback by the whole thing. And the same thing in India. A little boy, so I showed them the video. It was roughly 8 minutes or so. When the video finished, I gave them a little brief that, moon has so many Saturns and la, la, la. Let's go to the lab now. My role is finished. I sit in a corner and I do the observations and I find out what they're up to. I was sitting in a corner when a kid came to me and said that, he dragged my hand, took me to his computer, and he said, you're a liar. I was like, wow, what have I done now? Some more trouble my way. And he said, look at this screen. You told us when you finished the video that moon had only 48, 49, 50 Saturns. I have now uncovered on this screen, which is the BBC website, that moon has got 62 Saturns, the largest one being Titan. And not only that, they have found a little methane lake on the surface of this moon, and it runs on a hydrostatic equilibrium. I was ready to faint again, that a 9-year-old boy had grasped so much in such little time. So we figured out that here is something that definitely works. So in 2012, I brought it to my schools, and we started running our classrooms with this pedagogy. Let's say when I'm working in the rural areas, there is no access to a computer. We can't exactly Google everything. So what do? So let me say that we did another experiment that instead of structuring your curriculum in a black and white manner, you twist it a little bit. So if I were to ask you what's the capital of India, everyone would jump up and tell me the answer, that Delhi is the capital of India. Now, if I were to ask you the question other way around, that why is Delhi the capital of India? You'd probably think for a little bit, wouldn't you? Why is Delhi the capital of India? You'll take your time. You'll consult your friends sitting on the same bench that, do you know the answer? Why is she asking this way? What is it supposed to mean? But you would look at the map and probably try and figure out that, yes, India has a lot of water on all sides. It's got mountains on the other side. So if somebody wanted to attack through the water, it would be a little tricky because you'd be so visible, and also you can prevent them from boarding on your land. So you become a little vulnerable as an enemy or somebody who wants to attack the country. But let's say if you came through the mountain ranges, it would be easier to hide. You can travel in huge numbers. A huge packs of people can travel by landmass. That you cannot do on water. And also, if you look at the history of India, we have always been attacked from the north. So it would make sense not to sit in Kerala and guard our boundaries, but to sit in the north and guard our country. So it makes sense to call Delhi the capital of India. This way, how many windows did I open? We touched history, we touched geography, we touched politics, and we opened so many windows of discussion rather than just saying Delhi is the capital of India in a straight answer in a classroom. It's all very well to say that we have a flowery, beautiful, rosy pedagogy that teaches children so many exciting things and it gives them ample mental impetus to learn. But what if you can't measure the learning? It would defeat the objective, right? So we looked into it a little carefully, saying that, the Indian system is such that if your son came home one day and said that, Mommy, I got 25 out of 25 in my weekly test, you would do anything for him. But God forbid if he told you that he failed, or if he got only 5, or he got 0, or he got 6, or he got 7, the child is in big trouble. Now, let's not be judgmental. That's what we're doing. Let's not be so judgmental that if you got 10, you're not good enough, and if you got 25, you're superb. Let's take a step back and say that if you got 20 out of 25, where did you lose those 5 credits? वो 5 mark किधर गए? Let's go back, find those 5 marks, reconstruct them. Go back to their understanding. Reconstruct their understanding, which they missed out on in the classroom. And then once you have done that, assess them again. So in our schools, every Saturday, we have an assessment. But if you don't get 25 out of 25, you keep on getting instruction and you keep on getting reassessed until we are absolutely sure that you learned what you were supposed to learn in that week. So that's the assessment that we are following. An identity of a good school is when you have a great leader leading it. But how many great leaders, as we all know, we can find? It's very difficult. If I'm sitting here in Bombay, it would be very difficult to run a school in Jamnagar. If I'm sitting in Jamnagar, it would be very difficult to have my school running efficiently in London, which I do. We came up with this dashboard approach where every day, by the end of it, we have an exact calculation of what lesson was taught in which branch, how many minutes did it take to deliver those instructions in that lessons, where the children assessed what was their score, and the exact same lesson in another branch, what were the statistics. Not only that, we have completely replicated the management model that if I were not to be in the schools tomorrow for a long period of time, the model would not suffer and it would run beautifully, just as efficiently as I was there in the office. So with the micromanagement of quality, we have now managed to scale up considerably. And we always believe that, a good role model is what drives the children. Every time I come back from a trip and I try to get into my office, there is a sea of children during break time. They all get up and they're jumping and shouting that, where have you been? What took you so long? We've missed you. And that makes life worth it. That you have done something right in order for them to miss you. So leading by example, being a role model is what we encourage amongst all our schools and throughout our staff and teachers. And after 6 years of not being able to go back to England, this is what we have managed to achieve. And we are offering all of this for $7 to $12 a month, which is roughly 700 to 1,000 rupees a month, including free books, free uniform. In 2013, we had Professor James Tooley come visit us, and he said that, are there areas where children are still suffering? I said, we are doing what we can, and, we are delivering our best. He said, can you take me, since Gujarat is a coastal place, can you take me to one village which would have a sea, and, I can speak to some parents. So we took him to the town of Sikka, And I remember being on the jetty and he was asking parents, do you prefer Gujarati medium or English medium? And I was like, why is professor wasting time? It's obviously Gujarati medium. These are fishermen. They want their children to speak the same language so that they can instruct them, they can monitor them. Trust me, every single person we spoke to, those fishermen on the jetty of Sikka, they said that we would love to send our children to an English medium school. Out of all these stories, a little anecdote came in, and I'll finish my talk at that. He said that I have two children, one is in class 5 and the other one is in class 10, but he dropped out from class 10. The fifth one is still carrying on. I said, why did he drop out? He said, when he was in class 8, I went to see the principal of the school saying that my son in class 8 cannot count from 1 to 10. Is there something you can do about it? He will soon be in class 10. He went again and again and again to the school only to be arrested by police one day on the basis of harassment to the principal. Now, this heartbroken parent said that if you open a school here, my child would be the first one to enroll. So following that, we started our first school in Sikka. This is Cadmus Education Private Limited, our first school in Sikka. 6 years later, we now have 10 schools, over 7,000 students, and we were named the 5th best school in Gujarat. It took very efficient leadership, it took vision to where we were going, and it took a very thorough, calm, understanding change management. My dream is by end of 2025, we will be across Gujarat in 33 districts with 33 schools and having a model that is replicable, scalable, and sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with a sense of possibility.
Well, I think what to say, I mean, I'm speechless. I think you are doing a wonderful job, and I can only say that you are making a future for the children and future for the family. I think you are really a true icon for most of the people like us. May I request Sonam to, you can read? Read the citation.
Rotary International District 3141 is pleased to honor Ms. Ekta Soda and confer upon her Equality Educator Award for her compassion, vision, and commitment to the cause of equality to access quality education. And the citation is signed by District Governor, Conference Chair, and RID, RIPR. Yes, you have.